What's up, y'all? Welcome back to this week's episode of Sweet and Savory Barbecue. We got a whole pack of brisket we're going to be doing hot and fast out on the Myron Mixon smoker. Let's get started. Before we get any seasonings or injections in this, we're just going to do a light trim. Just kind of make it a little aerodynamic. There's a little hump over here. We're just going to cut that off. You can save this stuff. It makes really good burger or sausage. Got a little cut there. We can just trim that back just a little bit. I'm not going to worry about any of this silver skin right here. We're going to cut this hump out. Again, just making this brisket a little more aerodynamic so the smoke will roll over it. And this fat's just not going to render. If there's any oxidized meat, you can cut that off. Alright. So any real heavy bands of fat like that. Flip it over. There's really not much of a hump here. I'm going to take a little bit off this point. We want to take this fat down to about 1/4 inch. You don't have to get a ruler out or anything, just eyeball it so it looks good. Just cut this over here. And what I do with my brisket is I see which way the grain's running, and I just make a little notch. That way once it's cooked and our seasonings are on it, you know which way your grain's running, you can cut against that grain. Alright, so we've got our injection mixed up. We're using Butcher's Barbecue, his original brisket injection. Just follow the directions on the packet. And we've got it primed up in our injector here. And we're going to start with the flat. Just imagine it was a checkerboard there, and just go with the grain and inject all the way down. If a little bit comes out, that's okay. That's why we're doing it in the pan, try to help contain that. This Butcher's brings a lot of flavor. It's got phosphates in it to help it with the moisture content, especially on a brisket like this. It's just a cheap brisket from Walmart. Alright, now that we've got our flat injected, we're just going to come up and hit this point. If you're making burn ends, that's where that's going to come from. We're not going to make any burn ends today, we're just going to slice the point up. And as you can see, that's all it's going to take. That took the whole batch of what Butcher's recommends on their packaging. So we're going to get some seasoning on this, get it wiped off, get the injection cleaned off. I don't put any seasoning on before the injection because I don't want to waste any of the rub, and it's all just going to rinse off if it leaks out like it does. We're going to get some seasoning on here. We're going to start with just a little light coat of oil just to help it stick a little bit. Starting with the fat side because I want my top side to stay nice and pretty. Using our all-purpose seasoning here. It's a mixture of salt, pepper, and garlic. You can go pretty heavy on it. It's a big, thick cut of brisket, so it can take a lot of salt and pepper. Make sure we get back here on our edges. Then we're going to follow that with our barbecue rub. And if you want, that salt and pepper and garlic makes a really good brisket too. I just want to get a little bit of color, a little bit of barbecue flavors on here. Not going to go too crazy on the fat side. So flip that over. Do the same treatment on this meat side. A little oil, a little AP. Pat it in, make sure we don't lose any of it. And some of the barbecue rub. So for our last little step that I like to do, I'm using some of Killer Hogs Steak Rub. If you have a steak rub you like, just use that here. And we're just using this on the meat side, fairly lightly, and it's just going to bring a pop of flavor. We're going to let this hang out here on the counter while we go outside and get the smoker fired up. For this cook, we're using a propane torch to light our fire. It normally takes about 3 minutes. until I'm ready to close the door and let the barbecue guru take over. We got our smoker fired up, running at 300. We got our water pan in here, that's boiling away. Get one of these racks out. And on this grill, the heat comes from the bottom, so we're gonna put it in fat side down. Get it centered up. Get it in there, get the door closed. We're running some pecan wood in there, again at 300 degrees. So it's been 3 hours here at 300 degrees. It's about time we're gonna get a wrap on it. Got a good color going on. Take it right off the rack. Put it in a pan, we'll get it inside, get it wrapped up and get a probe in it. So we've got our brisket inside now. We've got it in a pan on a cooling rack just to keep it elevated a little bit. Not putting anything in the wrap with the brisket. I want all natural juices coming out of there. Just gonna get a piece of aluminum foil over top, seal it down. Got a ThermalWorks dot here. We're gonna put it right there in the flat so we can keep an eye on our temperature. We're sitting at about 177 degrees. Still got a ways to go. I'm probably gonna take another couple hours. We're gonna get it back out on the pit, hold that temp steady at 300 and it'll be ready in no time. As you can hear, our alarm's going off. We've run up to 206. It was 204 when it started to go off. We're gonna come in here, take our probe out. And all we're gonna do for this is just check to see if it's soft. Not really looking for an internal temp when I'm doing this part. As you can see, it's sliding in like butter. Same all the way up to the point. So now's the point. I'm gonna take this off and let it rest for at least 2 hours. If you can go 4, that's great. You can stick it in a dry cooler, or you can wrap it up in old moving blankets and just let it hang out on the counter. It'll hold the heat plenty. There's also people who use Cambros. Any of those options are good. You just really want to make sure it rests. So we've let our brisket rest here for about 2 hours. We wrapped it up in an old towel, set it on the counter. Still piping hot, so we got cotton gloves underneath of our nitrile ones. Before we slice it, we're just going to go over what we did. We took this whole packer brisket, just put a light trim on it, made it a little more aerodynamic, got some of the real thick fat off, injected it with Butcher's Barbecue Original Brisket Injection, hit it with our all-purpose seasoning, followed by our barbecue rub, and got it out on our smoker at 300 degrees. On our smoker, we cooked fat side down. That's where the heat comes from, so we wanted that fat cap to protect that lean meat. You can do this on any grill, just hold the temp steady at 300. After about 3 hours, we wrap this, and really that's all to color. It could take 2, it could take 3, it could take 4. Totally up to you and how dark you want it to get. At 3 hours, we got it in a pan, wrapped it up, and it took another 3 hours. It was right at about the 6 hour mark we got this off. Again, let it rest. That's the most important step of this whole process. It lets the meat calm down, lets it reabsorb the juice, and it just makes for a better product. If you slice it right away, all your stuff's gonna run all over your countertop. All right, so now we're gonna slice into this thing again. Remember, and cut against the grain. We made this little notch here. Looking for about 1/4 inch in the slices. And this is the piece I'm going to get right here in the middle. Knock some of this fat off of here. As you can see, it does the bend test perfectly. Sits there on itself and breaks right apart. Still a lot of moisture in that flat end. I'm going to get a bite of this flat. Really good, smoky, beefy. That injection really helps with the moisture content. Now we're going to see what we did with this point end. That's my favorite part. If you're gonna make burnt ends, that's where they come from. So we're just gonna come right here, slice it. And this is one of the best shots in barbecue right there. All that fat melting down, providing that moist and tender meat. Next step I do is I just come and slice it right in half again. And I make these slices a little bit thicker. Come in here and get me a piece of this point end. This is the best part. Again, look at all that moisture still left in there. That is hard to beat. Again, beefy, moist, tender, cooked perfectly. Thank you for checking out our video today. If you like what we're doing on the channel, subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss any of our videos, and be sure to check out all our other social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we'll see y'all next week.